are some terrible, awful people in this world who sometimes like to claim to be an all-powerful being or a savior of sorts, despite being the exact opposite. We are talking about a lot of cult leaders today, so buckle up, folks. What is up, Top 10 fam? Welcome back. I am your host today, Olivia Kosolofski, and today we are going to be covering the top 10 evil people who claim to be God. Starting off in our number 10 spot, we have Shoko Asahara. Shoko was previously called Shizuo Matsumoto, but after running into some trouble with the law for running an illegal pharmacy, he decided to have a career change and instead turned his focus to religion. I'm personally not really seeing the connection here, but hey, I've never run an illegal pharmacy, so maybe there's something I'm missing. In 1987 is when he changed his name to Shoko, and he also founded his own religious cult called the Religion of Truth, and it is said to have been a blend of Christian, Buddhist, Taoist, and Hindu teachings. He began to claim that the world was actually going to be destroyed, but that he was actually the savior who would deliver those who were spiritually pure. His following grew, and it is said that at one point there were over 10,000 people following him throughout Japan and a few in Russia as well. Things quickly took a dark turn, however, when it was revealed that one of his followers had killed a bunch of people by releasing a poisonous gas on a train carriage. It was later found out that Shoko was the mastermind behind this plan, which was intended to topple the government and place him as emperor. Well, the opposite of that happened, as after an 8-year trial, he was sentenced to death. In our number 9 spot today, we have David Koresh. You may also know him as Vernon Howell, but whatever you call him, he sucks. In the 1930s, Lois and Ben Roden, who were the founders of the Branch Davidian sect, believed that a new messiah would arrive. Shortly after this is when David joined the group and he began to get close to the pair. After Lois passed away, he managed to gain control of the following, and he changed his name to become the new leader and self-proclaimed messiah. Under the control of David, allegations of horrible crimes began to come out from the cult, and on February 28, 1993, there was a warrant issued for his arrest. Things escalated and there was a shootout in which 6 members of the group lost their lives, but so did 4 members of the ATF. Over 51 days there were negotiations being made with David while he continued to stall. It is said that this all finally came to an end when the FBI carried out the last mission to take members of the sect by force. This is when the compound they were in was set on fire and 76 members of the Davidians, including David himself, perished. In our number 8 spot today, we have Rael. Rael is a French journalist who is also the founder of what is called the Raelian movement, which is a UFO cult. Apparently, Rael had some sort of extraterrestrial encounter in December of 1973, and this is what led him to found this movement. Rael says that during this alien encounter, the alien told him that he was the chosen one and he needed to spread the message to the people on Earth. This UFO cult believes that humans were created by an alien species, and once we find a way to find peace on Earth, those aliens will come down and tell us our true origins and bring us utopia. It seems as though Rael now lives here in Canada and still continues to spread his message. In our number 7 spot today, we have Michael Travesser. Also known as Wayne Bent, this guy was the leader of what is called the Lord of Our Righteousness Church in New Mexico. In 2000, he claimed that he himself was the Messiah. He predicted that the world would end in 2007, which I can confirm was not true, and he stated that God had said to, quote, "stay with me one more year," but a year later he was arrested for some of the most horrific crimes that I cannot even mention here on YouTube. Not only this, but he also admitted and acknowledged doing similar crimes before in the past, like it was no big deal. He went on to compare himself to Jesus Christ, and he told the media, quote, "the current upheaval over me and the present contest is well underway. It was the same for Jesus. Jesus had not committed any crimes, so the authorities had to invent some crimes to crucify him over. It is the same for me also. I have committed no crimes, but many crimes are being imagined and concocted in the minds of men to try and kill me again." In our number 6 spot today, we have Yahweh Ben Yahweh. Hulon Mitchell Jr., as he was named at birth, was a separatist who created the Nation of Yahweh in 1979 in Liberty City, Florida. He changed his name with this new one meaning God, Son of God, and it is said that perhaps he was intending for this change to show that he is the Son of God, but this is unlikely considering most of his followers considered him to be God incarnate. Here's where things go off the rails though. He and other members of this cult ended up being convicted of conspiracy for their role in more than a dozen killings. That That's so many! He ended up being released on parole in 2001, and he was prohibited from reconnecting with his old congregation. To help enforce this, he was restricted from any form of speech by internet, telephone, computer, radio, or television. In our number 5 spot today, we have Sergey Torop. I'm not gonna lie, he's probably not the most evil person on this list today, but that's not exactly hard to accomplish with the list we've got going on. Sergey is also known as Vizarian, and he is a Russian mystic and leader of the cult Church of the Last Testament. He also claims that in August of 1990, when he was 29 years old, he had a revelation that he was in fact the reincarnation of Jesus Christ, and this led to him starting the cult. How convenient. As the leader of the cult, he is said to teach reincarnation, veganism, and harmonious human relations, predicting the end of the world. This doesn't sound too bad, except for that whole thing about being Jesus, but here's the kicker. He was arrested in September of 2020 on charges of running an illegal religious organization, and as well for causing physical harm to others and extortion. Also, if you go on his Wikipedia page and look under the personal life section, you'll see some other weird stuff I can't talk about, but definitely earned him a spot on today's list. In our number 4 spot today, we have Chris Korda. Okay, this one's a little different from the others on this list today, because this isn't necessarily a person who claims to be God or any kind of messiah, but rather they have chosen to play what has been called a quote godlike role. Chris is a musician and software developer who is also the leader of the Church of Euthanasia. The goal of this cult is said to be to restore the balance between humans and the other species on Earth, but the method of doing this is rather sinister. Chris describes this cult as the only anti-human religion, and this makes sense when you realize that the entire point of the cult is to drastically reduce the human population. This means that Chris is out there telling and encouraging people to take their own lives. This cult has done some extremely problematic things and actually puts out videos that promote and show how to take your own life, which is something that just should not be out there for vulnerable people to have access to. Chris is still unfortunately active as the cult's leader and continues to spread this extremely harmful message. In our number 3 spot today, we have Marshall Applewhite. Marshall and his former partner Bonnie Nettles were responsible for founding the cult called Heaven's Gate. If you haven't heard of it before, these two believed themselves to be something called walk-ins, which they said are higher beings who took control over the bodies of two middle-aged humans so as to spread their word and teach humanity. Oh, okay, for sure. Really believable. Crazy thing is, there are people who believed it unfortunately because they were manipulated and taken advantage of. They gave up their lives and all worldly possessions in the belief that Earth was to be recycled and the only way to continue surviving would be to leave immediately. The time to leave Earth came in March of 1997 when Marshall claimed that they had a spacecraft that was traveling to the comet Hale-Bopp. The catch with this spacecraft, however? Well, Marshall told them that they needed to stage all taking their own lives in order for the UFO to take them to, quote, another level of existence above humans. 39 members of the cult, including Marshall himself, took their lives over the course of a few days. This was the largest event of this kind since the next point we are about to talk about, which brings me to number 2. Jim Jones. Jim is certainly one of the most well-known people on this list for all of the wrong reasons. He is the man who claimed that he was a reincarnation of Jesus, Buddha, and Gandhi, and he founded the cult which was originally called Wings of Deliverance, but he later changed the name to the People's Temple Full Gospel Church. After an expose in the New West magazine about the things going on in this cult, he ended up moving the group from the United States to Guyana. From here, there were claims of horrible things and human rights violations, which led to an investigation. People found out that some of the supposed members of this cult were actually being held against their will. In the end, with all of this going on, Jim managed to convince his followers to all take their own lives in one massive, horrible event, and this day has gone on to become known as the Jonestown Massacre. A total of 918 people died that day, including Jim himself. In our number 1 spot today, we have Charles Manson. It was a toss-up of who to put in the number 1 spot today, as there are a whole slew of terrible people on this list, but today Charles had to take the spot as he is likely the most famous person on today's list for being the absolute worst ever. Manson was released from prison in 1967, where he then moved to San Francisco, where he gained a small following that would eventually go on to be the cult known as The Family. The group eventually moved to an abandoned ranch outside of Los Angeles, and it was here that Manson continued to brainwash his followers and manipulate them with his own religious philosophies. He is quoted as saying, quote, "I'm God to my friends, I'm the devil to my enemies. When I look to the future, I'm the prophet. When I lay down the law for our earth, I'm the son of man. Manson claimed that there would be an upcoming race war in which white people would be slaughtered, which was intended to instill fear in his followers. This was so he could ignite a race war and send his followers on a killing spree, which ended up being the night of the horrible Tate and LaBianca killings. This led to a reign of terror in the Los Angeles area for several months because people just couldn't understand how or why this happened. Alright guys, that has been our list for today. Thank you so much for checking it out. Sorry it was a bit of a dark one, but there's just some terrible people that have existed in this earth, unfortunately. I've been your host today, Olivia Kosolofski, and I'll see you all next time. Bye. Last video of the day. Alright, and it's a f***ed up one, so get ready.